I am a security unit, or sec unit. I was built to protect and obey humans, and humans are idiots. But now that I've hacked my programming, I can do whatever I want, as long as they don't find out.
Alexander, welcome to the Awards Tour podcast, sir.
Thank you very much.
I love Murderbot. I got to actually chat with you a little bit about last year. Congratulations, you guys are going to be coming back, which I'm so excited for. But talk a little bit about this role, because I think it's another example of something I've seen in your filmography where I just hate to say it, you just find these roles that just circumvent your natural presence and just give us a much more interesting character. Like, of course, we're going to have a GQ model Murderbot that also has a stream of consciousness that we get to follow for however many episodes. So yeah, talk about why you wanted to be the Murderbot.
Well, when I first came across it, I wasn't. So it's Murderbot is based on a book series, a series of novellas by Martha Wells called The Murderbot Diaries, and I hadn't read those prior to reading the script. So when I was sent the script, all I knew was it was a sci-fi show. It was called Murderbot. To be honest, my expectations when I started reading it weren't that high. I didn't think it was going to be for me. I thought, again, not knowing anything about the books, I didn't know anything about the character, but just judging by the title, I thought it was going to be kind of a traditional heroic action sci-fi, kind of a badass robot kicking ass in space kind of thing. But I knew that it was written by Chris and Paul Weitz, and I knew that they were very, very smart and very good writers and directors. So that piqued my interest. So I started reading it, and I was very, very surprised when I was introduced to this character, because again, it was anything but what I anticipated. It wasn't that kind of gunslinging tough guy. It was a character who was very idiosyncratic and uncomfortable in social gatherings and quite inherently lazy, someone who wasn't prone to kind of throwing itself into the most heroic missions or action sequences. It was basically all I wanted to do was be left alone and watch space soap operas. And there was something so endearing and surprising about that. And then obviously I went back and started reading the novellas, and that was very much the character that Martha had created. And I was just I kind of fell in love with the character.
And the reason why I say that is because, listen, I've been a really big fan of your filmography, and you've done so many different things. I mean, I would look at something like what you do in a film like The Northman, but then compare it to like what you're doing in Charlie XCX's The Moment. And I just feel like any actor who could do that, and then Murderbot, and then also Pillion, and then all of these other things that you've done, I just feel like when you think about your choices as an actor, I don't know, is it careful? What is the thing that sort of inspires you to say, this is the next right thing for me? Is it just instinctual? Is it you send it to peers? Like, how do you know? Because there does seem to be a real sort of careful magic to it, in that you've amassed this really varied filmography from Zoolander forward.
I just send everything to my dad and I ask him what I should do.
Shut up.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay. What has been your favorite recommendation of his then?
He's got great taste.
He's got great taste. He's got great taste.
Yeah. As soon as I read Pillion, he was like, you got to do this, son.
Oh, wow. Oh, I kind of love that.
Kinky biker BDSM movie. No, it's very much I don't really have a good answer to that question, because it's not a strategy. It's not it's not like a list of movies and boxes I want to tick off. It's very driven by a gut feeling and instinct, or kind of obviously informed probably, but by where I am at the moment when I read a script, informed by what I've done recently. Again, having spent 8 months in the mud playing Amleth in The Northman, I was quite eager to go do something very different. So jumping from that to Succession, which is kind of like the diametrically opposed to that, was exactly what I needed in that moment. I think, again, there's no real plan, but if I look back on what I've done in the past couple of years, it's often, I can tell that I think I tend to gravitate towards stuff. The thing is, like, when you do something, when you spend a short shoot is a month, a long one is like 8, 9 months, but
Mm.
you're going to be living with that character for, I don't know, at least 2 years between like pre-production, the actual production, post-production. I mean, we spent 10 months traveling with Pillion from Cannes last year till our last premiere was not even 2 months ago in Berlin. So you're spending a lot of time with the people you made the movie with, and inhabiting the character, inhabiting the world, and then talking about that character. So I don't know, when I read a script and I know and I think about and I talk to the people who are behind the project, the director, the other actors, I basically think, like, do I want to spend 2 years on airplanes and in press rooms and in editing suites or in on set, obviously, with these people on playing this character? Is that something that excites me or not, basically? So there's no real plan behind it.
Mm. Well, if there's no plan behind it, I will say the product of the no plan is quite astounding. And I would also say it's to the random things that I think you say yes to. I'll say like that cameo and What We Do in the Shadows, I think is like a perfect example. Like it was great. And there's just so many of those. I think you had a role in Michael Shannon's directorial debut that I caught.
Yeah,
And I'm like, this guy
yeah.
does not care. He's like, yeah, sign me up. I will do
But
it.
that's also like, so Michael Shannon is a dear friend of mine, and I adore him as an actor and as a human. So obviously, I was so honored when he called and he was going to make his directorial debut and asked if I wanted to be in it, and I got to play against Judy Greer, who's absolutely extraordinary. So it was a real treat. What We Do in the Shadows, that was actually, we were shooting. I'm a big Matt Berry fan. I think he's one of the funniest dudes out there, and I thought the show was incredibly funny, and I love the old Taika's film version of it from years ago. And we were actually shooting season one of Murderbot in Toronto simultaneously. So we were basically on a 5-minute drive from their studio where they shot What We Do in the Shadows. So that little scene that I was in, I shot the same day. I went straight from Murderbot set to shoot that little thing. And it was incredibly, incredibly fun. But I started quite young in this industry, and I've worked for quite a few years, and I'm also kind of relishing in the fact that I'm at a place in my life and my career where I have the luxury to choose projects. And for many, many years I didn't. And I was just happy if I could land a job. And I tried to not take that for granted and actually enjoy this moment and take advantage of that, and actually, well, then choose something that you're excited about, and find people that you want to work with on and project that you're excited about. When you, for once in your life and once in your career, have an opportunity to do that, because who knows how long it's going to last. I definitely don't take it for granted.
Well, I like that you're having fun with it because again, I'm a huge fan of the choices that you've been making, whichever way that you choose to make them. With Murderbot, I think when you do make the choice to do it because it reads so well and the character looks so interesting, once you then get closer to production, there's a lot that you have to pull off, whether it be the voiceover work, which I feel is like a third job because so much of this movie is his internal dialogue, right?
Yeah.
There's the physicality of the fact that he's like a, rockin' sockin' murder bot, and there's action sequences, less than what you would expect given the title, but still a lot, right?
Yeah.
What was the aspect of this performance that you found to be the one that took the most time to sort of master? And which one were you surprised was the opposite, like the easiest thing to do?
Well, you mentioned the voiceover. That was, so much of the narrative is told through that, and it's in a way used to kind of in some instances explain to the audience what's going on, but it's more often basically Murderbot commenting on what's happening on screen. So it's kind of in conversation with what you're seeing or in contrast to what's happening on the screen. And a lot of comedy is born out of that, the friction kind of between what you're seeing, how Murderbot is acting. We also wanted tonally, Murderbot is very kind of quiet and laconic in real life. And we wanted the internal monologue to be a bit more bubbly and effervescent and stand as a contrast to that. It took a lot of time, and it was also interesting because the voiceover was written 10 months before we started shooting the show. A lot had happened in those 10 months. And again, because the voiceover, a lot of it is like Murderbot commenting on what's happening on the screen. When then you shoot the scene, and that was also quite interesting. It was kind of like trial by error, figuring out like on set, how do we do this? Because sometimes they're long speeches in voiceover. Like, should we have someone off camera read that, or sometimes, because obviously the other characters aren't supposed to hear that, would that affect the pacing of the scene in a negative way? Sometimes we felt like, well, actually, in this instance, it's good to read it out. And in other cases, it was like, let's cut the voiceover and make sure we have enough coverage to edit it in. But for the pacing of the scene, it's better if we leave it out. So it was kind of like we figured out on the day how to utilize that. But then we also noticed that a lot of it wasn't reflecting the scene anymore because, again, it was written 8-10 months before we were shooting it. So then we would tweak it on the day, and then 5 months later, when the show was being edited, we realized that there are so many ways you can play with a voiceover. So Chris and Paul and I spend 3 weeks just. Normally you do ADR for maybe a day or two, which we did, but then we spent 3 weeks together solely on the voiceover, which was it took a long time, but it was also creatively really fun because we sat together all day for 3 weeks, basically, and just recorded different versions of the voiceover. We did like the old written one that was like from the first draft. We did the one that we kind of came up with on the day, and then we tried different ones. Sometimes we'd just like pare it back, scale it, or change it. Sometimes we played around with the pacing of it. We played around with the tone of it, and we found a lot of comedy in that. Sometimes there were moments where there weren't any voiceover written, but just by adding a little comment from Murderbot, a moment that could feel kind of pedestrian was suddenly quite elevated and fun. That's a long answer to your question of like what was not the most challenging, but definitely the most time consuming.
Yeah,
it was figuring out the voiceover, figuring out the internal voice of Murderbot, but it was also tremendously fun and rewarding doing that because it was thrilling when we were in the recording studio and just like trying something new to a scene that we felt wasn't quite working, and then suddenly it would pop and it would change it completely, and that was a lot of fun.
I dig that. This is not the first time that you've led a television series. You did The Stand. I think you did another one where you were sort of like number one on the call sheet. But I would have to say this film in particular is probably the most demanding number one on the call sheet. I mean, you're like in every single scene. There's just no time for you off of it. Did you feel that with this one, or did it feel like other things that you've led? Or did you feel like with this production, how much was in it, with the sci-fi aspect of it, that you kind of had to bring a different sort of leader on set? Because I've heard this from a lot of actors, especially as they get later in their career. They definitely realize more now that position of like, oh, I'm the senior of the class kind of thing, as far as like maybe what I do sets the tone.
Not really.
Really? Okay.
No,
You're
I
like,
don't know.
no.
I think I approach it the same. I don't really. I think my approach. Obviously, if you come into something that's not that, when you're not there from the genesis of it, of course, like you kind of. So, for example, you mentioned Succession earlier. I came in 2.5 seasons into the show. I think I was like number 96 on the call sheet. So, of course, like but I was already a fan of the show, so I knew the tone of it. But I didn't know the actors on the show. I didn't know the people behind the camera. I knew of Jesse Armstrong because I was a big fan of Peep Show and his work with Armando Iannucci back in the UK. But again, I didn't know him personally. So of course, like when you come in, you kind of it might take a day or two to kind of figure out the vibe on set, and but I don't really approach it any differently. I come into it with the same kind of energy and enthusiasm, no matter if I'm number 96 or number one on the call sheet. That doesn't really, I don't feel more of a responsibility on this one than I do on any other projects. To be honest, it's not daunting in that way, and I think it also comes from our showrunners. Chris and Paul Weitz are just the loveliest human beings, and they surround themselves with just really, really great people, talented but kind people as well. So it's you step onto a set where you don't have to kind of, I don't have to work hard to make the working environment pleasant. It's just one of the loveliest sets I've been on.
Oh, that's super sweet. Also very Swedish, by the way. I feel
Oh,
like or they're Norwegian. Like I feel like this is like cultural for you. You're like, no, I'm just the same and I'm awesome every time.
yeah. I forgot to mention that. I'm awesome every time.
I mean, I just personally feel like that is like of your culture to be like, yes, no, you show up and you're awesome. Continue. Um, We've talked a couple of times, and I think it shows restraint on my part because I don't think I've ever let you in on the fact that I am a dyed in the wool from day one, read every single book, True Blood stan. Like I
Really?
used to be on the message boards. Are you kidding me, girl? You don't even know. I remember going on a message board the day that you cut your hair as Eric Northman when they like in the
Yeah.
season you came back without the extension. I remember being on a message board talking with people about how like I don't know what to understand with this. What does this mean for the lore? We had like an entire
Were
Tumblr
you
thing.
upset
Like,
about it?
I wasn't upset about it. I just wanted to know the lore because
Yeah.
the lore was if you cut your hair, it grows back like Claudia in Interview with the Vampire. And we were just
Yeah.
like, what are the rules?
Yeah. Yeah. No, so I was
No,
wearing,
you looked great no matter what, sweetie. We were not in any way like, oh, he has long hair, short hair. No, we were just like, well, what does that mean for the lore? Does he dye his hair?
yeah. Yeah. No, I think it was a creative choice by Alan Ball, the showrunner. I was wearing a wig, a long wig, blonde wig the first season, and I assumed that I was thrilled to hear that I was going to come back for the second season, and I was in no position to complain about my wig. But then Alan was like, "Yeah, we're going to get rid of the wig," and the scene was so delicious. I don't know if you remember the way it happened in the scene where Eric's hair is being dyed and by Pam, and it's like he. Lafayette is chained in the dungeon, and it's like there's blood in Eric's hair, and his concern is that Pam is going to be upset about it. Um, but it wasn't until that moment, like season one, the show was getting quite popular, but no one recognized me because my hair was short in real life. Like not
Mm.
once did I get stopped, even though the show was quite popular. Obviously, when my hair was cut, that changed a bit for season two, but yeah, lots of great memories from those years. It was incredibly fun.
No, it's one of my favorite shows, but I'd be curious as like somebody who's done a lot of things that I think people recognize you from, whether it be Big Little Lies, whether it be Succession, whether it be True Blood. What is the thing from your filmography that when people come up to you and talk to you about it, you're like the most happy? Like that's the one where you're just like, "Oh, you saw that?" Like that's the it's not the heavy one, it's more of like the deep cut where you're like, I really dug this movie. And if you're a person that really dug it and that's the one you come to talk to me about, you're I think it's even cooler.
There's a couple from that like hold a special place in my heart from like the beginning of my career. One is a limited series for HBO called Generation Kill. It's a 7-part series about the invasion of Iraq. You follow a platoon of Marines. It was kind of my first real job, my first real role. I'd done like a cameo, it's not even a cameo because I wasn't famous, but like a small supporting role in Zoolander prior to that. But this was like my first real job, and it was by David Simon and Ed Burns, who created The Wire. So like just incredible, incredibly talented showrunners, writers, and to this day, one of the things that it kind of changed my life. That was my first big job. We spent 7 months in the Kalahari Desert in Africa shooting it, and it was just life changing. So that one is really special, especially when men and women who have served come up and say that they feel like that depiction was felt authentic. That really means the world to me. Another one from earlier in my career would be Diary of a Teenage Girl by Maury Heller, her first feature done on a shoestring budget in San Francisco. Basically, her family, the whole crew were basically friends and family of Maury's, and it was such a special experience. And I just love her so much. And Belle Powley plays the lead of that, and Kristen Wiig is in it. And it was really just a really special film, small film, but it was a beautiful experience.
I love that movie too, because that was like right when I first started doing this job. I think I went to, you guys were at TIFF, I think,
Yeah,
maybe. And I
yeah,
was I saw it there. So no, I definitely love that one. She also did Night Bitch. She was in Queen's Gambit, because she's also an actress, because she's
yeah.
not
She started out as an actress. Yeah, she
yeah.
started out as an actress. And yeah, but she's incredibly talented and just like one of my favorite people. So it was really special.
No, I dig that one as well. The last thing I'm going to sort of talk about, just kind of bringing it back to Murderbot, is, you're going to get to do another sort of season with this one. And one of the things I think is interesting with the story, which I haven't really talked about, but it's this idea, like, Murderbot at the beginning, he just wants to go to his telenovelas. He doesn't want to do any of the things that the humans want to do. But by the end of the series, as his humanity sort of grows, so does his like of the people around him, and their mutual, like, the idea of sentience and the idea of robots or non-humans becoming more human is definitely something that the series sort of like examines. I'm curious for you, is that going to be something that they explore more in season 2 as these stories sort of progress? What can we look forward to as far as these, I think, interesting sort of like questions that a series like Murderbot asks that we might be asking soon enough of ourselves?
Yeah, it's Murderbot. I got to tread carefully here, so I don't. We're in the middle of production here, so without giving away any spoilers, but the way we leave Murderbot after the first season, obviously Murderbot takes off, leaves Mensa and the group, these people that Murderbot has grown attached to, but it's also important for Murderbot, and it's in the voiceover of like, what do I want? Who am I? Murderbot has gained autonomy, and but there are a lot of questions about its past, the trauma of what happened, those 7 seconds that come up in Murderbot's head of the massacre, what actually went down there. There's an opportunity at the end of the first season for Murderbot to go and live happily ever after on Preservation Alliance with these beautiful humans, but it can't do that. It needs to find out what it wants and who it is on its own terms, in a way. So I think that is where we're picking up the second season, Murderbot trying to find some answers.
I dig it. I dig it very much. All right, we're gonna get out of here. I again thank you so much for the show and the series. I think I have to ask you this every now and again too, because I saw your thing with Stephen Colbert where you gave him treats from your homeland, was it
Yeah.
and stuff like that. This is my last question for you. What is something that you wish Americans would adopt from your culture and vice versa, whether it be food, a sentimentality, a technique, or whatever? But like, if you had to choose between the two of like
Well, I'm trying to
American,
introduce pickled herring to Americans. I bring it over every time, and
are you really like, this is really your thing? I was hoping you were gonna pick something else, because
no,
seriously,
it's delicious. It's delicious.
I've not tried it. I've
I'm
not tried it. I will be the first to
I'm
say
I'm
it.
starting a little pickled herring empire, and So we're open to investments now. It's going to take over the U.S. before you know it.
Okay, anything you're going to try to adopt from the US to bring to your brother in your home country?
Sweden is the most Americanized country. It's more American than America. So it's like they have everything out there. We
No,
don't.
but I mean, there's sentimentality. Maybe you want them to be more audacious. Maybe you want them to be more,
Yeah,
I don't
they
know.
could do a little bit of that in terms of like the I guess like maybe a bit more audacious, but in terms of culture,
They have it all.
they have it all. Yeah,
I mean,
it's
y'all
very,
speak
very
better
good.
English than we do, so facts.
Yeah, I think there's more McDonald's and Burger King in Sweden than in the States. So they got it covered.
All right, I will make you this promise. Before I next see you again, which I'm sure will be something with Murderbot, I'm gonna try pickled herring so I can no longer be a hater from outside the club. I will at least go inside first.
Yeah. But I'm not talking about the fermented surströmming, the fermented one, not that one, the pickled one.
The pickled one, I will.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
yeah.
you.
Come on, we got
All
some
right,
class here.
I will look it up.
Because the fermented one not even I touch that.
Fair.
All
Appreciate
right.
you. Anyway,
Pickle it
thank you
is.
so much, sir, and thank you so much for being
Thank you very
here.
much, Jacqueline. Appreciate it.